Well, this is just a bizarre story. Both U.S. and Canadian officials stationed at embassies in Cuba are reporting that they were victims of an acoustic attack back in 2016. So what that means is sonic weapons, sound, was actually used to induce hearing loss in these individuals. Here with more, former Secret Service agent Dan Bongino. Dan, explain to us what this is, how it may have happened.
Yeah, the bizarre is an accurate word to sum this up. You know, I've traveled overseas extensively in my former career as a Secret Service agent. And Trish, when we go overseas, we work out of the U.S. Embassy on foreign soil because it's a safe zone for you to work in. And while it's not uncommon for us to be spied on using signals intelligence, trying to intercept cell phone and computer traffic, and for both to be spied on trying to intercept human beings as well, to get human beings to be foreign sources, it's really uncommon for people to be attacked overseas. And I think the Cuban statement on this is very telling. I'm speculating here, but it may not be the Cubans doing this. It may be a third party using Cuban soil. They were very clear in their statement.
They're trying to say, look, this isn't us, because this is a big deal. I mean, you start going after diplomats when they're there stationed in your country, that can be interpreted pretty badly by us or by Canada or anybody else who's been affected. But Dan, talk to me about Cuban intelligence gathering and I mean, they don't really have a military. However, one former U.S. intelligence officer was telling me, interestingly, that it was actually former KGB, or rather back then, at the time, current KGB officers that were training Cuban intelligence officials. And that was because, of course, the USSR, Soviet Union, Cuba were close. And so that's the culture in which they have grown up. And so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that those folks in Cuba, intelligence-wise, may have resorted to some bad stuff. It may also, you know, as you're alluding to, be someone else entirely. What's your take on it? As we look at the possible scenarios, what could they be?
Right. Well, let me present a third option, too, because I don't want to exclude the possibilities you said. It's either the Cubans, someone else, or maybe it's someone else with the Cubans doing a wink and a nod. I mean, it's certainly possible, and I'm glad you brought that up. Your source is exactly right. The Cubans are very promiscuous with their intelligence. They have a deep footprint in Venezuela. They have a long history with the Russians and the Soviets before them. It's certainly not uncommon for the Cubans to have footprints in other countries and other countries to have a footprint in Cuba. So it could be being done with a wink and a nod, but this is really scary stuff. You know, Trish, ultrasound, you know, anything above 20 kilohertz, when you start getting into those higher sounds, why it's called ultrasound, obviously, you can cause, you know, cavitation problems, you know, heat tissue damage internally. This is serious stuff, and you're absolutely right that if this was the Cubans doing this, you know, this can be interpreted as a very hostile act, and, you know, it's not likely for us to reciprocate on our soil. We generally don't do that kind of stuff, but it's certainly not going to be taken lightly by the United States when they find out who did it.